If you owned a Mega Drive in the 90s, there was a fairly good chance that you also owned at least one Sonic game. And for good reason. They were true system sellers, and the 16-bit titles remain some of the finest platformers ever made. Other developers jumped at the chance to create their own quirky platforming heroes for the console, with varying levels of critical and commercial success. Socket was Vic Tokai's attempt at a Mascot platformer, which, sadly, fell well short of its inspiration. The Sonic games helped solidify the Mega Drive's position in the market, providing titles that served as both technical showpieces as well as simply being brilliant fun to play. They were a staple in the collection of most Sega fans, providing high-speed thrills to an ever-increasing audience. It's no surprise then that many other platformers appeared on the system that borrowed heavily from the Sonic games, both in style and gameplay. These games ran the gamut of quality, with some being fantastic, whilst others, well...
Awesome, Kickstarter machine knows what? I'm awesome!
Socket is one of many 16-bit platformers that attempted to carve out a space for itself in the massive Mascot market. With speedy gameplay and an abstract graphical style, it certainly has the trappings of a decent Sonic clone, at the surface at least. Socket is a time-travelling cyborg duck, sent by the Time Warp Patrol to thwart the Time Dominator and prevent him from stealing valuables from throughout the ages. As Socket, you are able to move quickly through the stages, attacking enemies with kicks and collecting lightning bolts to top up your battery. There are bumpers and curves around the stages that both help and hinder your navigation. Stages are comprised of 3 acts: a high-speed area, an athletic area, and a labyrinthian area, which also serves as the boss location. So far, so Sonic. Things unfortunately unravel relatively quickly once you start playing though. The physics in Socket are nowhere near the complexity of those in the early Sonic games, let alone the more sophisticated games later in the Mega Drive's life, making Socket feel sluggish and awkward to play in comparison. The graphics are colourful and contain some reasonable sprite work, but enemies often blend into the background, and the abstract artwork makes some areas quite difficult to navigate. The stage design is all over the place, punishing you for trying to travel at speed with almost unavoidable damage, whilst the relatively crude physics-based movement makes some jumps frustratingly difficult to clear at low speeds. The high-speed stages are very short and easy, and the other stages, whilst not much harder, are simply not that interesting due to the level design being fairly bland and random. The biggest issue here is one of Vic Tokai's own making. By attempting to emulate the Sonic games, they inevitably draw comparisons to their own title that they can't possibly come out on the winning side of. It may feel unfair to compare Socket to some of the best platforming games of all time, but it's sadly the bed that Vic Tokai made for themselves. They were shooting for Sonic, but if we're honest, ended up achieving something that looks and feels more like Bubsy.
What could possibly go wrong?